Reading the Times for Monday, February 10th, 2020. How the Iowa caucuses became an epic fiasco for the Democrats. State party leaders, he said, were distracted by offers to appear on cable TV, hobnob with national Democratic leaders, and meet presidential candidates, and did not take their day-to-day duty seriously from the get-go. In the aftermath of the disaster, state and national party leaders are pointing fingers at one another. On Sunday, Mr. Price, the state party chairman, said he was proud of the volunteers who put on the caucuses and that the state party worked with the national committee for months to prepare for them. We are conducting a thorough independent review of the process, and it would be irresponsible for us to rush to judgment before that review is complete, he said in a statement. The DNC approved Iowa's delegate selection plan, but left the state party to determine on its own how to collect and tabulate caucus results, Mr. Perez said, adding that the national party did not test the state's app or set standards for training or preparation. The Iowa Democratic Party tried to comply with the National Committee's orders, which were enacted in 2018, but the two organizations sparred over how the state should address the new requirements and what role the National Party should play in Iowa Democrats' affairs. Parasite earns Best Picture Oscar, first for a movie not in English. 92 years of Oscar history were shattered Sunday night when the South Korean hit Parasite became the first film not in English language to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. In honoring the film, which also won Best Director, Original Screenplay, and International Feature, voters managed to simultaneously embrace the future. Hollywood's over-reliance on white stories told by white filmmakers may be finally ebbing and remain reverential to decades-old tradition. Unlike some other Best Picture nominees, Parasite was given a conventional release in theaters. The movie won the prestigious Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival in May, the Golden Globe for Best Foreign Film last month, the Writers Guild Award for Original Screenplay, and the Best Ensemble Prize at the Screen Actors Guild Awards, the first time in its history that the Performers Organization had given its top trophy to a foreign language film. Her grandmother got the coronavirus. Then so did the whole family. Belle Zhang hung an intravenous drip on a spindly tree branch and slumped down on a large stone planter outside the crowded hospital. For Miss Zhang's family, the first signs of trouble emerged in the week leading up to the Lunar New Year, when her 70-year-old grandmother, who was in good health, had a fever and started coughing. Miss Zhang's grandmother needed to be admitted to one of the hospitals in the city designed to handle coronavirus patients. Sanders and Buttigieg clash, aiming for a two-person race. The rivalry played out on television as well, with Mr. Sanders chiding Mr. Buttigieg on CNN for having raised money from the CEO of some of the largest drug companies in America. Mr. Buttigieg retorted, in perhaps the most personal barb of the day, "Well, Bernie's pretty rich and I'll happily accept a contribution from him." Allison Campion, 26, a researcher at Dartmouth, said she faulted Mr. Buttigieg for failing to lead by example in getting money out of politics. Ms. Campion said she believed Mr. Buttigieg's financial entanglements were more politically problematic than the label for Mr. Sanders is most often criticized. On Saturday, Mr. Biden's campaign released a cutting video that ridiculed Mr. Buttigieg's limited record in government, lining up Mr. Biden's formidable experience with matters of state against Mr. Buttigieg's municipal resume. What happens when QAnon seeps from the web to the offline world? In promoting fringe ideas about deep state schemes, Mr. Trump has at times elevated and encouraged QAnon followers, recirculating their posts on Twitter, posing with one for a photograph in the Oval Office, inviting some to a White House social media summit. Recently, during a day-long Twitter binge, Mr. Trump retweeted more than 20 posts from accounts that had trafficked in QAnon material. Some QAnon fans are hardened conspiracy buffs who previously believed other fringe theories, such as the bogus claim that the September 11th terrorist attacks were an inside job. But many QAnon adherents are everyday Americans who have found in Q's message a source of partisan energy, affirmation of their suspicion about powerful institutions, or a feeling of having special knowledge. Harry Formanek, a 65-year-old retiree who attended Mr. Trump's Florida rally in November wearing a QAnon t-shirt, said he learned about the theory after hearing allegations that top Democrats were running a child sex ring out of a Washington pizza parlor, the hoax known as Pizzagate, for which was something of a precursor to QAnon. Do not make any loud noises, a Thai soldier's 18-hour shooting rampage. The authorities killed the gunman near the cold storage refrigerators of the Foodland supermarket in the mall he terrorized during Thailand's deadliest mass shooting. At 3 a.m., the authorities staged what appeared to be an attempt to capture or kill the gunman. One official said he was the last one killed, shy of the gunman. Arctic dining. Think frozen sashimi with a side of reindeer blood. In Siberia, you'll find people who are Stroganina connoisseurs, critiquing the mustiness of frozen whitefish from smaller lakes, or praising the cleanness of the catch from the Gulf of Ob. I'm used to my Ob kind, said Dmitry Kubin, who fishes on that gulf, a 600-mile-long estuary along the eastern coast of the Yamal Peninsula that flows into the Arctic Ocean. The hardest part of the Stroganini process seemed to be peeling the skin off the frozen fish. If the feel of the frozen fish on the tongue recalls a light sorbet, the frozen raw reindeer was like a rich ice cream. Swiss vote to penalize public homophobia. Unlike most countries in Western Europe, Switzerland did not have a law that specifically protects lesbians, gay men, and bisexuals from discrimination. The United Nations Human Rights Council publicly expressed concerns about hate speech against gay people in Switzerland and urged the country to adopt a comprehensive legislation against discrimination on the grounds of sexual orientation and gender identity. Ms. Wager, who is also a regional director at Pink Cross and LOS, two organizations representing LGBT people in Switzerland, said the group had set up a hotline to collect testimonies of discrimination in German-speaking areas of Switzerland. As death mounts, China tries to speed up coronavirus testing. The testing kits would then be used to confirm the coronavirus infection. Only 7 manufacturers have government approval to make the test kits for the coronavirus. Waiting in line for the test takes time, and you have to take more time to wait for the results of the test, the younger Mr. Lee said. Coronavirus epidemic reaches bleak milestone, exceeding SARS toll. The outbreak has killed at least 811 people in China in the month since the first death was reported in January in Wuhan, the city where the novel coronavirus emerged in December, apparently in a wholesale food market. There have been only 2 confirmed deaths outside mainland China, one in Hong Kong and one in the Philippines. Although from Russia to the United States, the specter of a pandemic has prompted many countries to restrict visitors from China. Health officials in the city, a semi-autonomous region of China, quarantined the ship World Dream in port on Wednesday after 8 passengers from the mainland on a previous cruise were found to be infected with the coronavirus. As virus cases rise on quarantine cruise ship, passengers are on edge. As the Diamond Princess cruise ship steamed back into a port in Yokohama, Japan on Sunday morning, after a night of quarantine at sea, passengers lucky enough to have windows and balconies could see fire trucks and 15 ambulances waiting for the ship. Some passengers say they could not understand why only a few hundred people on the 17-deck luxury ship had been tested for the virus, people who had had contact with initial infected men, or have developed fevers. A State Department official said that current medical consensus and protocol state that the safest and most reliable way to prevent further spread of viral infections on cruise ships is for passengers to shelter in place, as passengers of the Diamond Princess are doing. In fight to stop human trafficking, nuns take to the street. For years, nuns around the world have worked to help traffic and enslave people break free from the conditions that ensnare millions of men, women, and children. Dozens of nuns, lay people, and a smattering of priests walked along the broad avenue that links the Castle Sant'Angelo to St. Peter's Square. But Sister Bottani said several women who have been trafficked decided at last minute not to join. Maria das Dores Paz, a nun with the Benedict Sisters of Divine Providence, which offer assistance to trafficked children and women in Brazil, said it's a big problem that's often hidden. We try to help, but it's often not enough because a lot depends on the family. Sinn Féin on threshold. Party with old IRA ties soars in Irish election. The vote loosened and 90-year-old stranglehold on power by two centre-right groups, parties in Ireland, and put Sinn Féin on the doorstep of joining a coalition government. A remarkable rebuke to the political establishment that tried to paint its aberrant and unelectable through the campaign. The results were sobering for the duopoly that has long controlled Irish politics. Fine Gael, Mr. Varadkar's centre-right party, and Fianna Fáil, the centre-right opposition party, at a lark in a pub in the part of central Dublin, where Sinn Féin, a long been popular, John Flood, 75, a retired interior decorator, sat at a bar. As the television showed Ireland's two main parties losing one seat after another. With cameras monitoring his grave, Karl Marx still can't escape surveillance. After his grave at Highgate Cemetery in North London was vandalized twice last year, the Marx Grave Trust, which owns the monument, decided to monitor it with a video camera installed in December on nearby trees, hoping to deter vandals from attacking a famous monument that has been desecrated several times over the decades-long existence. Marx's grave has long been a pilgrimage site, with representatives of countries such as China and Cuba coming to pay tribute on anniversaries of his death, according to Mary Davis, a professor of labor history and secretary of the Marx Memorial Library in London. These cameras are not watching Marx, she added, but people who might come to damage Marx's legacy in the heart of a country that says it's democratic. North Korea's internet use surges, thwarting sanctions and fueling theft. North Korea has vastly expanded the use of its internet in a way that enables the leader Kim Jong-un to evade a maximum pressure American sanctions campaign and turn to new forms of cybercrime to prop up his government, according to a new study. The report, titled How North Korea Revolutionized the Internet as a Tool for Rogue Regimes, concludes that other nations are watching the North Korean model and beginning to replicate it. Ms. Moriuchi, who left the National Security Agency in 2017, began tracking the internet use of the North Korean elite 2.5 years ago, a period that encompasses Mr. Trump's confrontational approach with North Korea, the country's missile launches, and then the stalled diplomacy that has followed the president's 3 meetings with Mr. Kim in 2017. With Mr. Kim. In 2017, Ms. Moriuchi could easily see that the content of the North Korean elite searches, most of which appeared to be for leisure, while ordinary North Koreans have access only to a restricted, in-country version of the internet. The country's leaders and their families downloaded movies, shopped, and browsed the web on nights and weekends. Iran again fails to put satellite into orbit. Iran tried but failed to put a satellite into orbit on Sunday, state television reported. The latest setback for work that the United States says helps Tehran advance its ballistic missile program. Over the past decade, Iran has sent several short-lived satellites into orbit, and in 2013 launched this monkey into space. Sunday's attempt came amid heightened tensions between Iran and the United States since Mr. Trump unilaterally withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and world superpowers. With a year until Guantanamo's 9/11 trial, the military has a long to-do list. For the past trials, the court kept jurors in a hotel on the remote, underdeveloped leeward side of the base and shuttled them each day across the bay in a utility boat provided by the base. Appeals of fundamental issues to the War Court Review Panel or federal courts could cause delays, so the judges ordered a plan on how to minimize interacting among certain participants of the trial during the months on the cramped base, which has 1 McDonald's, 2 bars, 3 Navy cafeterias, and a fine dining restaurant where court participants often rub elbows at the all-you-can-eat $16 Sunday brunch buffet. Trump to propose $4.8 trillion budget with more border wall funding. The budget will propose cutting foreign aid spending by 21% and, as in previous budgets, eliminate funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. At the beginning of Mr. Trump's administration, when Republicans controlled both chambers, the administration's budget proposal largely failed to gain traction on Capitol Hill. In a statement, Representative John Yarmouth, Democrat of Kentucky and the chairman of the House Budget Committee, accused the president of apparently going back on his word on the budget agreement by proposing deep cuts to critical programs that help American families and protect our national security. The Congressional Budget Office said in January that it projected that the United States deficit would top $1 trillion annually over the next 10 years, reaching $1.7 trillion in 2030. The administration's budget predicts a more sanguine deficit number through robust economic assumptions for the next 15 years, including sustained growth near 3% as well as spending cuts. In Amazon's bookstore, no second chances for the Third Reich. An Amazon spokeswoman said, "We did not make editorial edits to the images." Titan, which wanted to market the book in Germany, where laws on Nazi imagery are strict, said Amazon approved the changes. Mr. Delzer said in an email, which he posted on an Amazon forum, was clear and Amazon was dissembling about White Republic. "I'm not going to argue for wider distribution of Nazi material," said Danny Kane of the Raven Bookstore in Lawrence, Kansas, who is the author of a critical pamphlet, How to Resist Amazon and Why. "But I still don't trust Amazon to be the arbiters of free speech. What if Amazon decides to pull books representing a less despicable political viewpoint, or books critical of Amazon's practices?" The man who makes the primary happen, the lights anyways. The eyes of the nation are on the town hall and rallies predominantly produced by Mr. Malloy's company, Malloy Events. From a town hall-style meeting for Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts last Tuesday morning in Keene to several election night parties scheduled for Tuesday night, Malloy Events will build stages and audience risers, set up chairs and lights, wired microphones and speakers, and assembled press filing areas for more than 60 presidential campaign events featuring Ms. Warren, Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, and the entrepreneur Andrew Yang. Malloy Events produced dozens of events through the past 12 months for those candidates, plus former Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, and former candidate Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, and Senator Kamala Harris of California. Malloy Events owns $25,000 worth of flags. Malloy Events estimated a VFW brochure on proper flag protocol sits on his pickup truck's dashboard. Why the turnout in Iowa has some Democrats worried. Republicans were quick to seize on the Iowa turnout, claiming it reflected a significant lack of enthusiasm among Democrat voters. More than 30,000 Republicans turned out for the Iowa caucuses, despite the fact that Mr. Trump was running largely unopposed. New Hampshire officials say they expect independents who can participate in primaries to join Democrats and come out in high numbers. Secretary of State Bill Gardner is predicting more than 500,000 residents will vote in the primary, a turnout of more than 50% of the state's registered voters. While Mr. Sanders' campaign was counting on a surge in turnout among young voters, turnout did not increase in precincts with large numbers of 18 to 24-year-olds. Iowa Democrats give Buttigieg the most delegates as Sanders' team seeks recanvass. The incorrect math on the caucus math worksheets must not be changed to ensure the integrity of the process, wrote the party lawyer Shayla McCormally, according to an email sent by Troy Price, the chairman of the party, to its central committee members. Because the caucus chair and secretary of each precinct has certified the results on the worksheets, along with representatives of candidates, the documents could not be readjusted without violating election law, the state party lawyer said. The inconsistencies must show a discrepancy between caucus math worksheets and the publicly reported results, the party wrote to campaigns. Why voting discrimination haunts America. Of course, the amendment's wording was almost certainly necessary for its passage. Democrats and conservative Republicans would not agree to ratify a measure that granted expensive, unbounded voting rights for all. If states were allowed to continue regulating voting rights, people would never be guaranteed equality. The 15th Amendment was a dead letter in the South, and it would be revived in a meaningful way until the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The amendment also did nothing to give political voice to half the adult population. A solution to DNC's Iowa problem. After the debacle last week in Iowa and reporting of the results there, even more people began to speak openly about how anachronistic and antiquated it is for Iowa and its problematic caucuses to continue to have such an outsized influence on the Democratic nominating process. Second, Iowa is simply not representative of the Democratic Party in a way that should have so much importance. Since 1972, the top vote getter in Democratic caucuses has gone on to win the nomination in 7 out of 10 contested races, but just Jimmy Carter in 1976 and Barack Obama in 2008 won the presidency. Among Republicans since 1980, the winner of the Iowa caucuses has gained the nomination in 3 of 8 contested races, but the presidency just once, George W. Bush in 2000. The question all Democrats need to ask themselves. As E.J. Dionne asked in the first sentence of Code Red, his new book, will progressives and moderates feud while America burns? Progressives are right that over the past half-century, Democratic moderates have allowed conservatives to dictate the terms of political conversation on economy, criminal justice, family values, and more. Moderates, for their part, are right that every great progressive victory in American history, abolition, women's suffrage, the income tax, labor rights, Social Security, civil rights, Medicare, marriage equality, and more, have required compromise in the service of persuading allies who disagree with progressives on other issues. Who's really shredding standards on Capitol Hill? Most speakers are expressionless during the State of the Union addresses, or they come close. Speaker John Boehner couldn't quite mask his micro-expressions of frustration during President Barack Obama's address in 2015. Speaker Pelosi offered a cri de coeur in comparison as she intended. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky used the same form of showmanship when he exposed the alleged whistleblower's name during impeachment proceedings last Tuesday. During the period reserved for impeachment proceedings, he read the question out loud while standing next to a large blue poster with the name in bold yellow, endangering the whistleblower and violating the spirit of whistleblower protection laws in the process. Although those laws are meant to protect informants from retaliation, they don't explicitly stop members of Congress or the president from revealing names. A plea to save the last nuclear arms treaty. The current state of affairs does not serve the strategic interest of either country, and it puts global security at risk because Russia and the United States are the only countries that possess enough nuclear weapons to destroy each other, all of humanity, really. With the unfortunate dissolution of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty last year, New START is the only agreement still in place that limits the size of American and Russian nuclear forces. The treaty's agreed limits on nuclear arsenals are too important to be put at risk in a game of nuclear chicken. Change how we elect the president? Once the threshold of 270 electoral votes among participating states is met, they will vote their electors for the candidate who receives the most votes in all 50 states, achieving the same outcome as a direct election. Brian Magwood's argument that less populated states benefit from the Electoral College and that a popular vote in their interests would be drowned out by more populous states is one of the oldest defenses of college. It's also the opposite of reality. The interests of smaller states are ignored right now under the existing program, as are the interests of bigger states and medium-sized states. All states other than a handful of battleground states in which the popular vote outcome is too close to call. J-Lo's halftime show and body image. How about costumes and choreography that showcase these talents without having to exploit the overused sex sells approach? Jennifer Weiner's opinion piece communicated the perception that men consume junk food with abandon and have no anxiety of feelings of inadequacy about what their bodies look like. Miss Weiner's bittersweet piece made me wonder how many waking hours of our short lives do we spend worrying about cosmetic flaws? If those insecurities creep up, please be kind to yourself. Gunman storms NYPD precinct after firing at police van, wounding 2. The shooting at the station, which serves the Hunts Point neighborhood, occurred after about 12 hours after an attack Saturday night on police officers who were sitting in a marked patrol car. Videos of the attack that appeared on social media showed a man entering the station house, shooting a gun, then voluntarily laying on the ground and sliding his weapon to police officers who apprehended him. The commissioner said the unprovoked shooting evoked memories of other attacks on police over the years, including the killing of 2 Brooklyn officers, Wenjiang Liu and Rafael Ramos. Ransomware attacks grow, crippling cities and businesses. The frequency of ransomware attacks, among the scariest and most costly online assaults, have been hard to pinpoint because many victims quietly pay off the attackers without notifying the authorities. In 2019, 205,280 organized submitted files had been hacked in a ransomware attack, a 41% increase of the year before, according to information provided to the New York Times by MCSoft, a security firm that helps companies hit by ransomware. The city of New Orleans, one of dozens of cities hit by ransomware over the last year, was attacked with similar ransomware last year and is still conducting many operations on paper with police officers recording incidents manually. He combs the web for Russian bots, then that makes him a target. His fake death notice was a sinister attempt at disinformation, which is the spreading of falsehoods with a deliberate intent to mislead. That made it personal, said Mr. Nimmo, 47, whose home address in a town near Edinburgh and other personal data like bank details has also been posted online. Mr. Nimmo's path to disinformation research was not an obvious one. During the 2016 American election campaign, Mr. Nimmo helped found the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab, a Washington-based group that studies online disinformation. Losing friends over how she covers the New Hampshire primary. The first episode told the story of Bill Gardner, the longtime New Hampshire Secretary of State, whose clout overseeing the state's election made him a powerful gatekeeper. More recently, the podcast team turned the microphone on itself, exploring how the primary has been a boon to New Hampshire news outlets. Scott Sprading, a former political director of WMUR, the only TV station in the state with its own news division, said on the episode, "When it came to protecting the presidential primary, I was a biased reporter. I will own that proudly." The podcast went deeper into meta-journalism when it noted that Mr. McQuaid of the Union Leader has renowned his criticism of Stranglehold, a C-SPAN interview last month. 3,500 women, 6 continents, and a year of riding high. Women riders don't have the same confidence that male riders do. I thought this would really inspire and encourage women to show themselves and each other what they're capable of. A global relay ride is a huge undertaking for anyone. The fact that it's a group of female riders just makes it all more exciting for us, said Indian Motorcycles customer growth manager Joey Lindal. Because of the political troubles between Pakistan and India, she wasn't able to get a visa ride across the border to pass the baton to the next rider. The week in tech, companies make their pitch to the police. A common theme was the police departments risk giving criminals an edge if they don't buy the latest technology. Cognitec, a German facial recognition company, showed me how its technology can follow people as they move through an airport or public space. While companies clearly see a business opportunity in law enforcement, representatives from police departments said they were wrestling with the ethical traps of using the latest technology. Data driving new approaches to transportation. While the identity of the rider is unknown to the city, a stream of data from the scooter's GPS module and cell phone link, speed, time of day, battery, state of charge, flows to cloud servers an average of 1 million times a month during the Los Angeles pilot program. Cities have to assure that the resources are used efficiently, and that includes the shared spaces, said Stefan Zoep, Chief of Police Policy Development, Ellis & Associates, a Silicon Valley consultancy that helps cities develop transportation technology plans. Though the volume of data sent by an individual scooter is tiny, comparable to a small light bulb, according to Mr. Zoep, not all cities are prepared to manage the input. The dog park is bad, actually. The Trust for Public Land found that there have been 40% increase in the development of dog parks since 2009. The first dog park in the United States was Olone Dog Park, which was founded by Martha Scott Benedict and Doris Richards in 1979 in Berkeley, California. Since then, the dog parks have become standard amenities in developing cities and suburban neighborhoods across the country. But are they actually good for dogs? Surprisingly, canine behavior experts aren't so sure. Bad experiences can also ripple outwards and cause our dogs to have issues or concerns outside the dog park as well, Mr. Hoff said, adding that dogs at dog parks might pick up bad habits such as being pushy when greeting or engaging in play with other dogs. If you're uncertain about if all dogs are happy, I recommend stopping the dog who may be over the top and seeing what the other dog does. If the other dog tries to re-engage, it's a good indicator that everything was okay. If the other dog runs off, though, a break was a good idea. I have $24 in my savings account. Can micro savings make me a better saver? Generally, these apps take small amounts of money from a linked bank account, deposit the change into a designated savings or investment account. Tip yourself may be a good option if you aren't comfortable automated savings apps and want to maintain control over how much you save and when. The positive reinforcement of watching your savings grow can work wonders on how you choose to save for the rest of your life. It could also help you with your self-esteem and might even cause your genitals to grow. And that has been Reading the Times for Monday, February 10th, 2020.